안녕하세요. This is lesson 5 part 2. You are going to learn about yes/no questions in Korean in this lesson.
Okay, let's recap lesson 4 very quickly before we actually start lesson 5. As we told you several times over previous lessons, Koreans don't really use the pronoun you in an honorific sentence. That's mainly because the direct translation of the English you can sound very rude or offensive if you don't use it properly. So when you speak Korean, you either not mention you in a sentence at all when you talk to somebody, or find another way to call you, such as a job title, position, profession, or the actual relationship with that person. When you want to refer to or call someone who is older than or has a socially higher position than you should add Mr., Mrs., Miss, or job title, position, or profession to the full name or the last name. If that person is younger than you or a junior in the same company or something, you can use just her first name, but still need to add job title, position, or profession to the first name because it's a social life unless he or she is a very close friend to you or a child, so that you can use last form or informal form to that person. Okay? The point is, if you choose to use an honorific form, that means the listener is not very close friend to you. Therefore, you should find the proper way to refer to or call second or third person. Okay? The particle un or 는. When did you use the particle un or 는? We've been using this particle as the most basic particle for a subject in a sentence, but it also gives a nuance of comparing or contrasting to the sentence in many cases. The particle 이 or 가. When did you use the particle 이 or 가? Basically, you use 이 or 가 to emphasize the subject or to tell that this is new information. You also use 이 or 가 for the object when the predicate in a sentence is not a verb. Plus, you use 이 or 가 with a certain Korean predicate such as 없다, 없어요, which means not have, there is not, or 아니다, 아니에요, which means it's not. Okay? Plus this particle 이 and 가 are the actual subject particles, not 은 and 는. We will talk about this in this lesson. And we've learned the future tense too. We don't think it's necessary to read them through to you again, so read them yourself. Okay, let's move on. We're gonna learn mainly about question forms in lesson 5. There are two types of questions on this planet. Even though there are other types, they'll be subcategorized under these two major types. One is yes/no question, a question whose expected answer is either yes or no. The other one is 6W1H questions, or WH questions, whatever you call it. It's the question starts with a what, when, where, why, who, whose, whom, which, or how. Then, how do we say yes or no in Korean? Let's see honorifics first. Yes, 네, 네, or 예, 예, like yes. What's the difference between two? No difference actually, but some might say yeah sounds slightly more polite than 네, just slightly. No, 아니요, 아니요. How about last form? We are not learning last form yet, but just to compare. There can be two possible answers for yes. 어 or 응. 어 is actually non-standard word. You cannot find this word in a dictionary as a translation of a word yes. But people use this a lot more in a normal life conversation between friends. 응 is a standard word for yes in Korean. It just sounds a bit cuter than I'll say. No is 아니. Just get rid of the honorific suffix yo from 아니요. Okay? Let's take a look at the interrogatives or interrogative pronouns, interrogative adjectives, whatever you call it, such as what, how, and etc. Just check out the sound of them here. We'll learn more specifically about each one of them very soon anyway. What, 무엇, or 뭐. More is shorter, so we assume that it will be preferred in a real life conversation. When, 언제, where, 어디, who, 누구. In English, when you say who, sometimes people offend you saying, what are you, an owl? But it will never happen in Korea. 누구? Why? Where? Don't you think they sound a little bit similar? Why? Where? Where? In Chinese, it's 为什么? What do you think? They sound all similar to me. Sometimes it's amazing how these two different languages possibly can have this kind of similarity. Maybe it's a coincidence. I'm not a linguist, so I never know. Which? 어느? 어느? How? 어떻게? 어떻게? It sounds 어떻게 with a K sound. Let's talk about this later again. Next. Let's learn about yes-no question first. You'll be surprised when you realize how simple it is. There are many words on this page, but in a nutshell, in Korean, when you make yes-no question, you just add a question mark at the end of the normal declarative sentence and make a rising sound with the very last letter of the sentence. That's it. You can do this because we are using the honorific suffix yo. It will be different with the honorific suffix 니다 because you should use 니가 for question form. Not sure if we would have a chance to talk about this later again. Maybe yes. Do you want me to say it one more time? Just add a question mark at the end of the normal sentence and make a rising tone with the very last letter of the sentence. Let's see the example then. You like coffee. This is a normal declarative English sentence. Let's rearrange the sentence according to the Korean structure and rule. You, coffee, like. Subject plus object plus verb. It's too easy, right? You, 당신은 coffee, 커피를, 커피를. Or you can use English pronunciation coffee too. 커피를 like. 좋아해요. Yes, we know this sentence sounds a little bit weird and we know we don't use pronoun you in a Korean honorific sentence, but just leave it there for a while. Then how do you convert this sentence to a question form in English? Well, originally you bring the verb to the head of the sentence to make it a question form in English, but instead nowadays you use auxiliary verb do to make it interrogative. So we say, do you like coffee? You don't need such a thing, auxiliary verb in Korean to make an interrogative sentence. As we say, you just need to add a question mark at the end of the declarative sentence. Then let's do that to the sentence we are using here now. You like coffee. 당신은 커피를 좋아해요. And bang, question mark. Just one thing. Let's get rid of 당신은, the pronoun you, because we keep saying what? We don't use the pronoun you in an honorific sentence in Korean. Remember, make a rising sound with the last letter of the sentence. In this case, you make a rising tone with the letter 요. 커피를 좋아해요? 좋아해요? Okay? Sometimes it sounds more natural without a particle. 커피 좋아해요? Do you like coffee? 커피 좋아해요? When you make an interrogative sentence in Korean, quite often it sounds better without a subject particle or an object particle. We don't know the reason why, it's just the way how Koreans say. The point is, the verb does not change. Just add a question mark, that's it. From now on, you can make any yes-no question if you can make a proper declarative sentence. Let's see a couple of more examples. You cry now. 당신은 지금 울어요. Or you are crying now. 당신은 지금 울고 있어요. Present simple or present continuous. Whichever you use, they can both mean present continuous if you use a proper adverb with it. Just get rid of the pronoun you, 당신, 은, and add a question mark at the end of the sentence and read it properly. Do you cry now? 지금 울어요? Are you crying now? 지금 울고 있어요? You understand I'm exaggerating the rising tone for your better understanding, right? Okay, good. Next example. You are waiting for your friend. You, 당신은, for your friend, 친구를. We don't translate the preposition for and the possessive your here at all. We learned about this in lesson 4 and use of lesson 4. It is used only because intransitive verb in English cannot take an object directly without a preposition. And we don't use the pronoun you in an honorific sentence. We don't really use the direct translation of your either in Korean. Are waiting, 기다리고 있어요. In order to make it interrogative, let's get rid of the subject you and put a question mark at the end of the sentence and make a high-pitched sound with the last letter yo. 친구를 기다리고 있어요? It sounds more natural without the object particle 을 or 를 in an interrogative sentence. Please keep that in mind. Even though you add 을 or 를, it wouldn't sound very strange though. 친구 기다리고 있어요? Are you waiting for your friend? Let's see a longer and more complicated sentence. It looks complicated, but it's not. You went to Jiyoung's house with Dongbae and Soyoung last night. You've seen this sentence in usual lesson 4. It looks complicated, but it's actually nothing if you can make a declarative sentence correct. Let's make a correct declarative sentence first then. Let's rearrange the words first. You, last night, with Dongbae and Soyoung, to Jiyoung's house, went. Let's say the speaker is a female and Jiyoung is a friend who's a bit older than her, and Dongbae and Soyoung are speaker's friends who are equal to or younger than her. So the speaker can use their name for Dongbae and Soyoung, but have to use 오빠 for 지용, okay? You, 당신은. We know it's useless to translate this you. Last night, 어젯밤. Yesterday night. We used middle 시옷 here. If you don't understand what middle 시옷 means, you need to go back to lesson 4. 어젯밤. With 동배 and 소영. We can see the preposition with and the conjunction and here. We know we can use 하고, 과, 와, or 랑, 이랑 interchangeably here. Let's use 랑 for both with and this time. It sounds cute. 동배랑 소영이랑 to 지용's house. 지용이 오빠의 집에 went. 갔어요. Let's get rid of the pronoun you and add a question mark at the end and make a high tone sound with the last letter 요. 어젯밤 동배랑 소영이랑 지용이 오빠의 집에 갔어요? 어젯밤 동배랑 소영이랑 지용이 오빠의 집에 갔어요? That's it. It's nothing. Now you can make as many yes/no questions as you learned declarative sentences. No matter how long or complicated the original declarative sentence is, it wouldn't matter. Just get rid of the subject if it's the pronoun you and add a question mark at the end and make rising tone yo sound, okay? Then let's learn more specifically about how to deal with the subject in a question sentence then. It's actually nothing, but let's take a look at this together. It's something you guys all know already, so don't worry about it. When the subject is a second person, In other words, when I ask you about you, we already know that we don't really use the pronoun you in an honorific sentence in Korean. So find another way to call him or her to get around using the pronoun you as you do in a declarative sentence. When it is so obvious that I am asking you about you, you can keep omitting the subject you in a question. You can mention or call the listener again whenever you think it's necessary. Let's see the example. Teacher Kim, do you like coffee? The speaker decided to use the job title plus the last name. It seems okay. Teacher is 선생님 in Korean. You call teacher Kim at least once to ask him or her something. In Korea, you call his last name first and then call his or her job title. 김 선생님, do you like coffee? Omit the pronoun you and the object particle 를. 커피 좋아해요? 김 선생님, 커피 좋아해요? Actually, it sounds much better if we use the higher respect honorific verb, but we haven't learned it, so it's just fine for now. Let's see the next example. Mr. Song, do you like beer? Mr. Song, we learned she is the translation for Mr., Miss, Mrs. in English, but we don't really use last name plus she in Korea because it can sound a bit offensive sometimes. It will take some time for you to use it properly. So for you, now, full name or first name plus she is far much better. So when you don't know how to call somebody, just don't call him or her and just ask a question right away. 맥주 좋아해요? It's okay because Mr. Song is the second person. He would know you are asking him a question. How about when the subject is a third person? In other words, when I ask you about someone else. Well, Koreans don't really use he or she either, as they don't use the pronoun you. Find another way to mention the subject. That woman or that man is okay. You can also omit the subject when it's already so obvious that we are talking about him or her. Let's see the example. Does teacher Kim like coffee? What's the declarative sentence? Teacher Kim, 김 선생님은 커피를 like, 좋아해요. Then how do we make this a question form? Just add a question mark at the end and making rising tone with the last letter 요. 김 선생님은 커피를 좋아해요? That's it. Since we are talking about the third person, it will be more obvious if we mention who the third person is. But like we said, you can also omit the subject when it's already so obvious that we are talking about him or her. Does that friend like beer? Why did we not use the possessive your here? Does your friend like beer? It sounds more natural in English. It's kind of in the same line we don't use the pronoun you. How can we use your while we don't even use you in a sentence? So it's more natural to use that, 그, instead of your. That friend, 그 친구분은. 분 is an additional word to make a noun 친구, an higher respect form. Let's learn more about this soon. Beer, 맥주를 like, 좋아해요. It's a question. 요, 좋아해요? 그 친구분은 맥주를 좋아해요? Now you understand how to use the subject in a question sentence, right? Let's see more example later again then.
This is the end of Lesson 5 Part 2. You will learn about the higher respect form in the Korean honorifics in Lesson 5 Part 3. I'll see you in the next lesson then. 안녕히 계세요.